Since its debut in 1965, Days of Our Lives has been a daytime TV legend, captivating audiences with romance, drama, and shocking twists that kept viewers coming back for decades. With its iconic hourglass opening and unforgettable characters, the soap opera became a cultural phenomenon and remains one of the longest-running shows in television history. But after 60 years of storytelling, fans often ask, what happened to the stars who brought Salem's beloved residents to life? In 2025, some actors remain part of the show, others moved on to new careers, and a few left behind lasting legacies. Join us as we explore the days of our lives. Cast: Then and Now. Frances Reid was born on December 9, 1914, and in 1965, at the age of 51, she took on the role of Alice Horton, the matriarch of Salem, in Days of Our Lives. On screen, Alice was depicted as nurturing, steadfast, and endlessly forgiving, a grandmotherly figure who often baked cookies while dispensing wisdom, making her one of the most beloved and trusted characters in soap opera history. Yet Reid's own early life was far from cozy. Raised in a strict household that valued discipline over affection, she endured years of emotional neglect and the humiliation of being underestimated by both her family and early theater teachers, who dismissed her as too cold for leading roles. Her career, though long, was not without turbulence. She was once sidelined from a major Broadway production after being labeled difficult, and her insistence on protecting the integrity of the Alice Horton character led to clashes with Days' producers, some of whom considered firing her during the show's restructuring in the late 1980s. Behind the camera, she concealed scars from a failed marriage to actor Philip Bournou, a union plagued by jealousy, infidelity rumors, and long separations due to touring schedules. After their divorce, she never remarried, and whispers circulated that she harbored unspoken romances with women in the theater world. Friends spoke of her fierce independence, but also of lonely years, compounded by the death of close family members, which deepened her reclusive tendencies. Reid eventually retreated from public life, battling memory loss in her final years, and she died on February 3, 2010, in Beverly Hills at the age of 95. Her estate, mostly consisting of modest Beverly Hills property and carefully preserved theater memorabilia, was valued at around $3 million, not a fortune by Hollywood standards, but symbolic of a lifetime of steady work. Even after her death, her reputation as both a stubborn perfectionist and a hidden romantic continues to color how fans and colleagues remember her legacy. MacDonald Carey was born on March 15, 1913, and at 52 years old he embodied Dr. Tom Horton when Days of Our Lives premiered in 1965, cementing himself as the wise patriarch of Salem, a healer both of bodies and souls whose calm authority anchored the show. On screen, he was compassionate and steady, but his personal history was riddled with contradictions. Raised in a fractured family during the lean years of World War I, Carey grew up under the weight of an alcoholic father and carried into adulthood a fear of repeating those patterns, a fear he ultimately failed to overcome. Dubbed the King of the Bees for his prolific but often underwhelming film career, his transition to soap operas was viewed by peers as a step down. And for years, he struggled with the stigma of daytime television, sometimes drowning his bitterness in alcohol. Carey's life was scarred by scandals. A failed marriage to Elizabeth Heckscher that collapsed amid accusations of infidelity and his violent temper, whispers of affairs with co-stars, and an addiction to both liquor and cigarettes that dominated his private battles. His most devastating professional failure came in the 1950s, when he lost out on several high-profile Hollywood contracts due to his unreliability on set, a humiliation that drove him further into alcoholism and nearly destroyed his career before days revived him. Personal tragedies weighed heavily: estrangement from his children, struggles with sobriety, and repeated health crises that culminated in a late-life diagnosis of lung cancer. Yet his baritone voice, immortalized in the soap's opening line, gave him a peculiar immortality, a daily reminder of his presence in millions of homes. Carey died on March 21, 1994, in Beverly Hills, from lung cancer at the age of 81, just days after his birthday. At his death, his estate was valued at about $4 million, mostly in real estate and modest royalties. But his story revealed a man whose dignified screen presence masked years of addiction, heartache, and bitterness toward an industry that had both crowned him and cast him aside. John Clark was born on April 14, 1931, and in 1965, at just 34 years old, he became Mickey Horton, the unlucky but principled lawyer who would spend decades entangled in Salem's endless scandals. Mickey was earnest, often manipulated, and his tragic arcs made him one of the show's most sympathetic figures, his misfortunes resonating with audiences who saw in him both strength and fragility. Clark's own youth was colored by hardship. His family weathered the Depression with little money, and as a boy, he endured cruel teasing for a speech impediment he worked tirelessly to overcome. His career was a grinding battle. Before days, he was rejected repeatedly from film roles for being considered too bland, and even during his soap tenure, he was at risk of replacement in the early 1970s when producers doubted his ability to carry heavier plots. Off-set, he faced scandals rarely spoken of, tense clashes with ambitious younger co-stars who accused him of being controlling, a public feud with producers over contract disputes in the 1980s, and hushed rumors of extramarital affairs that strained his marriage to Patricia, though the two never divorced. His greatest professional humiliation came during a brief hiatus in the late 1980s when he was quietly written out due to health issues, officially explained as exhaustion, but whispered to involve a nervous breakdown brought on by years of relentless work and behind-the-scenes feuding. He was also haunted by family struggles, particularly with his daughter, Melinda Clark, whose rise to fame with the OC sparked headlines that overshadowed his own late career achievements. Some insiders suggested jealousy tinged their relationship despite his public pride. In later life, he endured illnesses, including a near-fatal stroke, and by the 2000s, he rarely appeared in public. Clark died on October 16, 2019, in Laguna Beach from complications of pneumonia at age 88, leaving behind a net worth of about $5 million, largely from real estate investments and residuals. His death revealed a man who had spent decades respected but not unscarred, a Hollywood survivor whose quiet dignity concealed years of private turbulence. Bill Hayes, born on June 5, 1925 in Harvey, Illinois, stepped into the role of Doug Williams in 1970 at the age of 45, creating one of the most charming and beloved figures in Days of Our Lives history. Doug, a lounge singer with a shady past, transformed into the devoted husband of Julie, and their storybook romance became a cultural phenomenon, even landing Hayes and his co-star Susan Seaforth Hayes on the cover of Time magazine in 1976. But behind the glossy veneer was a man shaped by a fractured childhood. Hayes grew up during the Depression with little money and constant reminders from peers that he was an outsider, forcing him to retreat into music as an escape. His career began with a bang thanks to the hit song The Ballad of Davy Crockett. But the transition to acting was rocky. There were years where bills piled up, auditions dried up, and he faced humiliation in forgotten guest spots before finally breaking through in Salem. His personal life, however, was anything but simple. His first marriage crumbled in a bitter divorce, marked by accusations of neglect, and he struggled to stay financially afloat during the late 60s as his music career collapsed. Even after finding stability with Susan, there were rumors of jealousy and creative disputes between them on set, though they always presented a united front publicly. Hayes also dealt with declining health and bouts of insecurity over being overshadowed by younger stars, and at times was said to clash with producers who pushed his character into the background. Bill Hayes died on January 12, 2024, in Los Angeles at the age of 98, leaving behind an estate estimated between $7 million and $25 million. A wide gap fueled by questions about shared assets, royalties, and real estate. His legacy as half of daytime TV's most iconic couple remains untarnished, though privately, his story was one of reinvention through hardship, a man whose golden smile concealed years of pain and financial risk. Joseph Mascolo was born on March 13, 1929, in West Hartford, Connecticut, and first portrayed Stefano de Mera in 1982 at the age of 53, forever redefining what it meant to play a soap opera villain. Stefano was regal, merciless, and indestructible, the so-called Phoenix of Salem, a character so intoxicatingly evil that fans both hated and worshipped him in equal measure. And Mascolo embraced the role with the theatrical precision of a trained opera singer. His childhood was shaped by hardship. Born to Italian immigrants, he grew up facing ridicule for his heritage, often mocked by classmates, and spent much of his youth suppressing anger that later fueled his larger-than-life performances. Though he enjoyed success on Broadway and film, his career was not without humiliations. He lost roles to younger, more marketable actors, and behind the scenes on days, he was known to storm out of rehearsals when writers altered Stefano's story arc, his temper creating rifts with producers. Mascolo's biggest career wound came when he was written off the show in the mid-1990s, a move that enraged fans but left him devastated, though he eventually returned to reclaim his throne. Off-screen, he lived a life of turbulence. His first marriage dissolved in acrimony, his son estranged for years, and colleagues sometimes whispering that he was domineering and manipulative behind the warmth he displayed in public. His final years were overshadowed by Alzheimer's disease, a cruel decline for a man once known for his commanding presence, leaving him increasingly dependent on caregivers while his public image was carefully managed to hide the worst of his struggles. Joseph Mascolo died on December 8, 2016, in Santa Clarita, California, at age 87, leaving behind an estate of roughly $12 million, including royalties, investments, and a home filled with artwork collected during his years in theater. His death marked the end of Stefano's reign, but his legend as the indestructible villain lives on, shadowed by the real-life fragility and bitterness that plagued his final years. Quinn K. Redeker was born on May 2, 1936, and in 1979, at the age of 43, he stepped into the world of Days of Our Lives as Alex Marshall, a silver-tongued manipulator who blurred the line between dangerous villain and irresistible charmer. On screen, Alex became a figure audiences loved to hate, embodying the very essence of Salem's web of betrayal. But behind Redeker's clever quips and meticulous screen presence was a man shaped by a fractured childhood in Illinois, where family discord and financial struggles left him guarded, often masking insecurity with wit. His career was not without cracks. Before his Emmy recognition, He was twice dropped from high-profile projects for being difficult to direct, a label that haunted him through the 70s. Rumors spread of his temper flaring on set, and whispers of manipulative tactics with co-stars circulated, though never confirmed publicly. His biggest professional humiliation came when he was fired abruptly from Days of Our Lives in 1987 after clashing with writers who claimed he refused to play Alex Week, damaging his reputation in daytime television. Privately, his relationships were troubled. 2 marriages dissolved in bitter divorces, and one former partner accused him of emotional cruelty. He also wrestled with an addiction to alcohol in his middle years, though he kept it well hidden under the guise of method acting. He lost a sibling to suicide in the 1960s, a shadow that remained over his life. Redeker died on December 20, 2022, in Los Angeles at 86, from natural causes, leaving behind 4 children and a complicated legacy. His estate, valued at $5 million, was built on both acting and his Oscar-nominated screenwriting for The Deer Hunter. Though family disputes over his will briefly made headlines, a final reminder that his story was as layered and messy as the characters he played. Peggy McKay, born November 3, 1927, played Caroline Brady in Days of Our Lives in 1983 at the age of 56, embodying the Brady family matriarch with a mixture of steel and tenderness that became iconic in soap opera history. Caroline was written as unshakable in her loyalty, yet flawed in her moments of secrecy, and audiences clung to her as the emotional spine of Salem's tangled storylines. But behind the poised character was a woman shaped by a cold, fractured childhood in Manhattan, where Peggy grew up in a family that prized appearances over warmth, leaving her with scars of loneliness she never fully shed. Her Barnard education and early-stage triumphs seemed promising, but her career was littered with rejection. She was fired from one Broadway production after only a week, accused of being too domineering toward co-stars. On the set of Days, McKay's fiery insistence on character integrity turned into clashes with writers, and whispers circulated that she manipulated storylines behind closed doors, often leaving younger actresses intimidated. Her personal life carried the same edge. She never married, claiming independence, but many in the industry murmured that she had a string of affairs with married producers, rumors she never confirmed nor denied. Friends noted her battles with isolation in later years, her sharp tongue masking a desperate fear of irrelevance. Despite these shadows, she lived comfortably, investing shrewdly in real estate while colleagues squandered fortunes. Peggy died on October 7, 2018, in Los Angeles at 90, her cause natural decline, leaving behind a $10 million estate composed largely of property holdings and royalties, a staggering fortune for someone who spent her life playing a woman constantly fighting to hold her fictional family together, while her real one never quite existed. Arlene Sorkin, born October 14, 1955, in Washington, D.C., burst onto Days of Our Lives in 1984 at the age of 29, embodying Calliope Jones, a fashion-obsessed, chaotic ball of energy whose zany antics masked both vulnerability and brilliance. On screen, she was beloved for her comic relief, but off-screen, Arlene was a woman constantly at war with the industry and with herself. Growing up in a fractured household, where financial instability and family discord forced her to mask pain with humor, she developed a biting wit that later became both her armor and her weapon. Hollywood producers adored her originality, but also feared her unpredictability. She clashed openly with executives, her sharp tongue leaving no one unscathed. A major controversy erupted when she was fired from America's Funniest People, prompting her to sue ABC for discrimination, an act that branded her as difficult in the industry and led to several high-profile doors slamming shut. Despite inspiring the creation of Harley Quinn and voicing the character with iconic flair, she resented being pigeonholed, once confessing to friends that the role had become a gilded cage. In her private life, her marriage to television producer Christopher Lloyd was far less idyllic than the press painted. Their union was marked by long separations, whispered infidelities, and the strain of her ongoing health crises. Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, she fought a long, hidden battle that stripped her of vitality, and the pneumonia that claimed her life was the final cruelty. Behind the public image of warmth and eccentricity lay years of isolation, bitterness toward a system she felt discarded her, and the torment of watching her body betray her spirit. She died in Los Angeles on August 24, 2023, at age 67, leaving behind a net worth of around $4 million, much of it from syndication royalties and voice work. Her fortune seemed modest compared to her impact, but her true legacy lived on in Harley Quinn, a character embodying madness and pain, ironically reflecting much of the darkness Arlene herself endured and never fully escaped. John Aniston was born on July 24, 1933, in Chania, Crete, Greece, and played Victor Kyriakis in Days of Our Lives, beginning in 1985 at the age of 52, a role that cemented him as one of daytime television's most cunning villains. Victor was ruthless, magnetic, and endlessly manipulative, the kind of patriarch who could destroy lives with a single deal. Yet Aniston's ability to infuse the character with rare flashes of humanity kept audiences addicted to his every move. His own childhood was far from glamorous. His family immigrated from Greece with little money, and he grew up in a household where financial insecurity and cultural displacement were daily struggles, experiences that instilled in him both resilience and a tendency to bury emotion. His career was marked by steady work, but it wasn't free of shadows. Before Days, he languished in obscurity with roles he considered humiliating. And even during his reign as Victor, he quietly feuded with producers over storylines that softened the character's edge. Off-screen, Aniston endured a bitter divorce from Nancy Dow, the estranged mother of Jennifer Aniston, who later spoke about the tension-filled household she grew up in, marked by silence and distance. Rumors swirled in the early 2000s about his dissatisfaction with NBC executives who threatened to cut older actors, and whispers circulated that he used his influence to keep younger competition at bay. Despite the controversies, he lived a quieter later life, though strained family dynamics reportedly haunted him. John Aniston died on November 11, 2022, in Los Angeles from natural causes at the age of 89, leaving behind an estate worth around $10 million, much of it tied up in property investments and residuals from decades of soap opera work. His fortune passed into a family still fractured by old wounds, a reminder of how even soap opera legends could not escape the messiness of real life. Jed Allen, born March 1, 1935, joined Days of Our Lives in 1971 as Don Craig at 36, portraying a charming attorney whose intelligence and vulnerability made him a fan favorite until his abrupt, unexplained disappearance from the show in 1985. Don's romantic misfortunes and tragic arcs left audiences furious when NBC axed the role without resolution, fueling rumors that Allen had been difficult with producers. Raised in a working-class New York family battered by the Depression, Allen endured bullying for his stammer and lanky frame. masking insecurity with bravado that carried into his acting style. His career soared with soap roles, but he was plagued by whispers of backstage arrogance. Some claimed he flirted excessively with co-stars, others that he stormed out of script meetings when unhappy with his character's direction. The most painful career wound came with his sudden firing from Days, which left him blacklisted for several years, a humiliation he disguised with his trademark charisma, but privately admitted broke him. Alan's personal life was equally turbulent. Though devoted to his wife Toby, his flirtations and rumored affairs haunted the marriage, and her sudden death in 2001 left him devastated, estranged for a time from his sons, who resented his absence during their childhood. Financial strain gnawed at him, forcing him into voiceover work and small guest appearances that fans saw as beneath his talent. He later attempted to reclaim dignity with his memoir, Please Spell the Name Right, which read partly as confession, partly as defiance. Alan died on March 9, 2019, in Palm Desert at 84, his cause heart failure, leaving behind an estate worth around $4 million, sustained by pension funds, residuals, and modest California property. A legacy that revealed both the glamour and the betrayals of a man who never fully shook the label of being disposable to the industry he served. Robert Clary, born March 1, 1926, in Paris, France, stepped into the world of Days of Our Lives in 1972 at the age of 46 as Robert Leclerc, a suave Frenchman whose surface charm concealed a storm of personal demons and hidden sorrows. On screen, Robert's mysterious past and noble heart captivated audiences, yet Clary's own history was darker than any soap opera script could dare to write. He was a Holocaust survivor who endured the unspeakable horrors of Buchenwald, where he lost nearly his entire family, 12 siblings and parents who never returned. This trauma shaped him, leaving a residue of distrust and suppressed rage, which he both buried in his performances and, at times, unleashed in his personal life. Though beloved in Hogan's Heroes, his career often stalled after the series, as producers quietly whispered about his volatility, his bluntness with directors, and his refusal to soften his French accent that some felt limited his casting. At Hollywood parties he could be charming, but he was also known to drink heavily in his younger years, lashing out with cruel jokes, and once alienating a studio executive with an angry tirade that cost him a film role. His marriage to Natalie Cantor, daughter of the legendary Eddie Cantor, was both a blessing and a burden. Gossip columns hinted at clashes over infidelity and financial disputes, though they kept much of their turmoil behind closed doors. After her death in 1997, Clary sank into a reclusive state, consumed by bitterness and loneliness, even as he painted and toured colleges to speak about Holocaust remembrance, a mission that some cynics accused him of exploiting for relevance. His later years were marked by fragility and disconnection from the industry that once adored him. And when he died in Los Angeles on November 16, 2022, at age 96 of natural causes, he left behind an estate worth only $1.5 to $2 million, far less than contemporaries, much of it tied up in modest real estate and artwork. His legacy is paradoxical, remembered as a symbol of survival and resilience, yet also as a man haunted to the end, whose triumphs were shadowed by lifelong anger and sorrow that Hollywood never dared to script. Frank Parker, born July 1, 1939, became Grandpa Sean Brady in Days of Our Lives in 1983 at 44, shaping the Irish patriarch into a gentle, big-hearted anchor who carried traditions and old-world wisdom into the tangled lives of Salem's younger generation. Fans adored his warmth, but Parker's reality was tangled in sorrow. He grew up in rural Pennsylvania, in a family devastated by alcoholism, often hiding bruises and embarrassment from peers who mocked his hand-me-down clothes and his father's reputation. Determined to escape, he pursued acting but endured countless rejections. Often cast as background characters, his deep voice mocked as too folksy for leading roles. On days, though loved by fans, Parker fought his own battles. Rumors swirled of tensions with producers when he allegedly showed up drunk on set in the early 1990s. And colleagues noted that his jovial singing sometimes masked despair. His most crushing personal blow came in 1998, when his daughter Candace was killed in a car accident, a tragedy that left him inconsolable and pushed him into a spiral of depression and erratic behavior. His marriage grew strained, his health deteriorated, and by the 2000s, Parkinson's disease and dementia forced his retirement in 2008, leaving him both physically and financially vulnerable. Once jovial, he withdrew into isolation, visited only by a small circle of loyal friends and family. Parker died on September 16, 2018, in Vacaville at 79. The cause linked to complications of Parkinson's and dementia. His estate, valued around $2 million, consisted of modest California property, savings, and royalties. A humble fortune overshadowed by the heartbreaks of his later life. His passing left fans mourning the loss of a beloved patriarch, while those closest to him remembered a man whose on-screen warmth stood in painful contrast to the shadows of grief and illness that consumed his final years. Thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through classic television history. If you enjoyed learning about the cast of Days of Our Lives and where they are now, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more vintage Hollywood retrospectives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your memories and suggestions, so let us know which TV show or movie cast you'd like us to feature next.